He checked his watch again. 6 minutes. 6 full minutes since he had walked into the building he built, and no one had let him in. Adrian Voss stood just outside the glass boardroom, fingers loosely clasped in front of him, his reflection faintly staring back from the polished wall. Inside, voices overlapped, confident, controlled, unaware. Laughter even slipped through once, sharp and careless. He didn't knock. Not yet. A young assistant passed by, heels clicking softly on the marble floor. She slowed, gave him a polite but dismissive smile, the kind reserved for visitors who didn't belong. "Can I help you?" she asked. Adrian returned the smile, calm, almost amused. "I'm waiting." "For?" she pressed gently. He glanced at the door. "For them to finish forgetting who I am." The assistant hesitated, unsure whether to laugh. She didn't. She nodded instead and walked away, already dismissing him from memory. Inside the room, Elena Ward stood at the head of the table, poised and precise. The screen behind her displayed numbers. Clean, impressive, final. "Heliction's offer is locked," she said. "We move forward today." A man to her right, Graham Pierce, leaned back in his chair. "Once we sign, there's no turning back." "There shouldn't be," Elena replied smoothly. "We've outgrown the original vision." Adrian's jaw tightened slightly. Outgrown. He closed his eyes for just a second. 5 years ago, he had walked away from all of this without hesitation. Not because he didn't care, but because something else mattered more. "Dad, are you coming to the game?" The memory came uninvited. He saw his son again, standing by the door with a basketball tucked under his arm, trying not to sound disappointed. "I'll be there," Adrian had promised. And for the first time in years, he had meant it. Back then, the house in Seattle felt too quiet, too empty. Lila's absence hung in every room like something unfinished. He could still hear her voice sometimes. "They had my records, Adrian, just not in the same place." He had held her hand in that hospital room, watching machines blink while doctors flipped through incomplete charts. One hospital had her scans. Another had her history. Neither had the full picture. By the time they figured it out, it was too late. Adrian inhaled slowly, the present snapping back into place. Inside the boardroom, Elena continued, "We're not just selling a company. We're securing its future." "By handing it to Helix Ion?" someone asked. "They have the infrastructure we need." "They have lawsuits," another voice muttered. Elena didn't flinch. "They also have reach. This is evolution." Adrian stepped forward. The door opened before anyone could react. Silence fell instantly. Every head turned. Elena's expression didn't change, but something flickered behind her eyes. Confusion. Then recognition. Then something colder. "Adrian," she said. He stepped inside slowly, unhurried, as if he had all the time in the world.
"Good morning," he said.
Graham leaned forward. "This is a closed meeting." Adrian glanced at him. "I know. Then you shouldn't be here." Adrian's gaze returned to Elena. "I was in the building. Thought I'd stop by." Elena folded her arms. "You don't work here anymore." The room held its breath. Adrian nodded slightly. "That's true." A pause. Then he added, almost casually, "But I still own it." Murmurs rippled around the table. Graham scoffed. "Ownership doesn't give you authority over operations." Adrian walked toward the table, his footsteps steady, measured. "No," he said, "but the right clause does." Elena's eyes narrowed just slightly. "Article 9, Adrian continued, his voice calm. Section 2. Graham frowned. "That clause hasn't been relevant in years." Adrian stopped at the head of the table, across from Elena. "It's relevant now." Silence deepened. Elena tilted her head. "You walked away, Adrian. You gave up control." "I gave up time," he corrected. "Not responsibility." "That's not how this works anymore." Adrian leaned forward slightly, placing his hands on the table. "It is today." Something in his tone shifted the room. Not louder, not sharper, just final. Graham pushed back his chair. "This is ridiculous. We have a deal on the table." "A deal," Adrian interrupted, "that undervalues this company by $4 billion. That landed hard. Elena's expression hardened. You don't have the full picture. I have enough, Adrian replied. He reached into his coat and pulled out a thin folder, sliding it across the table. Graham didn't touch it. Elena did. She opened it slowly, eyes scanning the first page. For the first time, her composure cracked. Just a fraction. What is this? She asked quietly. Emails, Adrian said. Internal projections. Bonus structures. Graham stood abruptly. This is confidential. And illegal, Adrian cut in. The room shifted again. You're accusing us? Graham snapped. I'm stating facts, Adrian replied evenly. Elena closed the folder, her jaw tightening. You've been gone for 5 years. You don't understand what it took to build this. Adrian held her gaze. I understand exactly what it took. No, she said, stepping closer. You left. You chose something else. A flicker of emotion passed through Adrian's eyes. I chose my family, and we chose to keep this company alive. Elena shot back. Adrian nodded slowly. Alive isn't the same as right. Silence pressed in from all sides. One of the board members shifted uncomfortably. If there are concerns, we can review them after. No, Adrian said. He straightened. This deal stops now. Graham laughed sharply. You don't get to walk in here and… I just did. Adrian's voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. Elena stared at him, something deeper surfacing beneath the tension. You think you can just take it back? She asked quietly. Adrian's answer came without hesitation. I don't have to take it back. He paused. It was never yours to change. The words hung in the air, heavy and sharp. And then, the door burst open. An engineer rushed in, breathless. We have a problem. Everyone turned. What kind of problem? Graham demanded. The engineer swallowed. There's an active data transfer happening on the main servers. Elena frowned. Scheduled? No, he said. Unauthorized. Adrian's expression shifted instantly. How many records? He asked. The engineer hesitated. Millions. A cold silence spread through the room. Graham recovered first. Shut it down. We can't, the engineer said quickly. It's tied into the system core. If we interrupt it wrong, we could corrupt everything. Adrian stepped forward. Where is it going? The engineer looked at him, unsure. Answer him, Elena said. External servers, he said. Encrypted. Adrian's jaw tightened. Helix Scion, he said quietly. No one responded. They didn't need to. Elena's silence said enough. Adrian looked at her slowly. You knew. It's part of the transition, she replied. Transition. His voice dropped. That's patient data. It's secured. It's being stolen. It's being transferred, she corrected. Adrian shook his head, almost in disbelief. This is what you turned it into? Elena's voice hardened. This is what it had to become. Adrian looked around the room, at the faces avoiding his gaze, at the screens still glowing with numbers that no longer mattered. Then he turned back to the engineer. How long do we have? Minutes, he said. Maybe less. Adrian nodded once. Shut it down. The room erupted. You can't do that. Graham shouted. Do you have any idea what that will cost? Yes, Adrian said. And you're willing to lose that? Adrian met his eyes. I'm not willing to lose what matters more. He looked back at the engineer. Do it. The engineer hesitated only a second before turning and running. Elena stepped forward, her voice low, dangerous. If you do this, you destroy everything we've built. Adrian's expression softened, just slightly. No, he said quietly. I'm saving what we were supposed to build. The lights flickered. Screens went dark one by one. And just like that, the system went silent. For a split second, nothing moved. The hum of servers that had always filled the building, constant, invisible, reassuring, vanished. The silence that followed felt unnatural, like the air itself had been cut. Then the alarms began. Not loud at first, just a distant tone, somewhere deep in the infrastructure. Then another, and another. Within seconds, the entire floor was alive with flashing lights and urgent footsteps. What did you do? Graham shouted, his voice cracking under pressure. Adrian didn't look at him. He was watching the screens.
Dark.
Every system, every process, everything that had defined this company for over a decade paused. Confirm shutdown, Adrian said, calm but firm. The engineer's voice came through the intercom, slightly distorted. Core systems offline. Data transfer interrupted.
A beat.
Extraction stopped. A breath left Adrian's chest, slow, controlled. Behind him, the boardroom exploded. Do you understand the damage you've just caused? Graham snapped, pacing now, hands shaking with barely contained fury. Do you have any idea how much revenue just disappeared in the last 30 seconds? Adrian finally turned. Yes, he said. And you still did it? Yes. Graham laughed, but there was no humor in it. You're out of your mind. No, Adrian replied quietly. I'm exactly where I need to be. Elena hadn't moved. She stood near the head of the table, her face pale but composed, eyes locked on Adrian like she was trying to solve something that no longer made sense. You always did this, she said softly. Adrian tilted his head. Did what? Act like you're the only one who understands what matters. A faint shake of his head. That's not what this is. No. She stepped closer. Because from where I'm standing, you just crippled a global system for an ideal that doesn't exist anymore. Adrian's expression didn't change, but something in his voice sharpened. It exists, he said. You just stopped believing in it. A pause stretched between them. 5 years of silence, trust, distance collapsing into this one moment. You think I wanted this? Elena asked, her voice tightening. You think I woke up one day and decided to betray everything we built? Then explain it, Adrian said. Her jaw clenched. Growth, she said finally.
Scale.
Survival. The world changed, Adrian. The systems we built, they weren't enough anymore. Hospitals didn't just want connection. They wanted control. Data. Ownership. Helix Scion offered that. They offered leverage, Adrian corrected. They offered sustainability. At what cost? Elena didn't answer immediately. And in that silence, the answer became clear. Adrian exhaled slowly. That's what this is, isn't it? He said. You didn't just adapt the company, you changed its purpose. I made it relevant. You made it profitable. And that's a problem? Yes. The word landed without hesitation. Around them, the room had gone quiet again, not because the tension had faded, but because it had sharpened into something more dangerous. Enough, Graham snapped. This conversation is pointless. The systems are down, the deal is compromised, and we are standing here arguing philosophy. He turned toward the board. We need to restore operations immediately. No, Adrian said. Graham spun around. You don't get to say that. I already did. Graham stepped closer, his voice dropping. You think that clause protects you from consequences? You think investors are just going to accept this? Adrian met his gaze steadily. They'll accept the truth. And what truth is that? That their data was being sold. The words hit like a hammer. Murmurs spread again, this time sharper, more uneasy. Graham's expression flickered, just for a second. Adrian saw it. You didn't tell them, he said quietly. Graham recovered quickly. Everything was within legal boundaries. Legal doesn't mean right. It means protected. Adrian shook his head slowly. Not this time. He reached into his coat again and pulled out another document, thicker this time, and placed it on the table. This goes to the board, the regulators, and every major partner within the hour. Graham stared at it. What is that? Proof.
A beat.
Of everything. Silence. Elena's eyes moved from the folder to Adrian, searching his face. You've already sent it, haven't you? She asked. Adrian didn't answer. He didn't need to. For the first time since he walked into the room, uncertainty truly broke through her composure. You planned this, she said. I prepared for it. You didn't even try to talk to me first. Adrian's expression softened, but only slightly. I did, he said. 5 years ago. The words cut deeper than anything else he'd said. Elena looked away first. A long, heavy moment passed. Then Adrian straightened. This ends now, he said. He looked around the table, at every face. Effective immediately, Elena Ward is removed as CEO. No one spoke. Graham Pierce is removed as CFO. Graham scoffed, but there was no confidence left in it. You think you can just declare that? I just did. You'll be sued into the ground. Maybe, Adrian said, but not before the truth comes out. Another silence. Then, slowly, one of the board members, an older man who hadn't spoken once, leaned forward. If what he's saying is true, he began carefully, then we have a fiduciary obligation to act. Graham turned on him. Don't. But it was already happening. One by one, the balance in the room began to shift. Not loudly, not dramatically, but undeniably. Adrian watched it happen, not with satisfaction but with something heavier. Responsibility. Elena saw it too. She let out a quiet breath, almost a laugh, but without humor. You really came back for this, she said. Adrian met her eyes. I came back for what it was supposed to be. She studied him for a long moment. Then, slowly, she nodded. Not in agreement. Not in surrender. Just acknowledgement. You always were impossible to ignore, she said. And you always were too smart to do something like this, he replied. A flicker of something passed between them. Regret. Then it was gone. Security arrived moments later, not aggressive, just present. Professional. Final. Graham argued as they approached him. Elena didn't. She simply picked up her tablet, paused for a second, then placed it back on the table. Take care of it, she said quietly. Adrian didn't respond. She walked past him without another word. And just like that, she was gone. The room felt different immediately. Lighter, but also uncertain. Adrian stood there for a moment, letting it settle. Then he turned. Bring the systems back up, he said. The engineer's voice came again. Carefully. Carefully, Adrian confirmed. And clean. Yes, sir.
Sir.
The word hung in the air. Adrian almost reacted to it. Almost. Instead, he stepped out of the boardroom. The hallway was quieter now. Different. People were watching him, but not dismissing him anymore. Recognizing him. Not just his face, but what he had just done. He walked slowly, not rushing, not lingering. Just moving forward. A young engineer hesitated as he passed, then spoke. Mr. Voss. Adrian stopped. The engineer looked nervous. Is it true? Adrian turned slightly. What part? That this place used to be different? Adrian studied him for a moment. Then, slowly, he nodded. It still can be, he said. The engineer's shoulders relaxed just a little. Good, he said quietly. Adrian continued down the hall. By the time he reached the elevator, the building was already coming back to life. Systems rebooting, conversations restarting, a new rhythm forming. Not the same, but not broken. He stepped inside the elevator and pressed the ground floor. As the doors closed, he caught his reflection again. Same face, same eyes, but something had shifted. Not power, not control. Something deeper. The elevator opened. The city greeted him with its usual noise. Cars, voices, movement. Life continuing. He stepped outside, breathing in the cool air. For a moment, he just stood there. Then his phone buzzed. A message. Did you do it? He smiled slightly. Yeah, he typed back. It's done. Another message came almost instantly. Are you coming home? He didn't hesitate this time. I'm on my way. He slipped the phone into his pocket and started walking. Not back toward the building, but away from it. Towards something quieter, warmer, real. By the time he reached the house, the lights were on. He opened the door, and before he could even step inside,
Dad.
two voices.
Fast. Loud. Alive.
They ran into him without slowing down, arms wrapping around him with a force that knocked the breath out of his chest in the best way possible. He laughed, holding them close. I missed you, one of them said. I was gone for a few hours, he replied. Still counts, the other insisted. He smiled. Fair enough. They pulled back, looking up at him. Did you fix it? One asked. Adrian paused. Then he nodded slowly. I fixed what I could.
They seemed satisfied with that.
Kids always were. They didn't need the full story. They just needed to know things were okay. Later that night, after they were asleep, Adrian stood in the living room, staring at a framed photo on the wall. Lila,
Smiling.
alive in a way that time couldn't touch. He stepped closer, his voice barely above a whisper. I didn't let it become something else, he said. Silence answered him. But it wasn't empty. It felt complete. He let out a slow breath. I kept my promise. For a moment, nothing moved. Then he nodded to himself, turned off the light, and walked away. Not as the man who had lost everything. Not as the man who had built a billion-dollar company. But as someone who had remembered why it mattered in the first place. And refused to let the world forget.